CL is going to give a speech today. Terrill will be doing Project 3, the moral of the story, from the Storytelling Advanced Manual. The time of his speech is 4 to 6 minutes. His goal is to either choose an existing fairy tale or create an original fairy tale that has a moral. Terrill has chosen to create an original fairy tale, and the title of his speech today is The Ruler and His Three Children. Please help me welcome Terrill to the lecture.
Once upon a time, fellow Toastmasters and our welcome guest. Isn't that a great way to start a fairy tale? Well, once upon a time, there was an island nation, and it rose out of the crystal sea on all sides, and it got higher and higher where it met the highest place in the middle of the island. There was a white castle with tall towers and pennants that floated gently in the breeze. And dotted all along this island were quaint little houses that formed quaint little villages, and there were farms and factories. There were lots of animals. There was cows, dogs, pigs, chickens. There was also pets. There was cats and dogs. There was even a mouse or two. But no rats. Rats were strictly out. In the castle lived a ruler, a king, and all the villagers knew that he was a wise and caring king. And he had 3 children. The eldest was tall and thin, and the villagers knew of his quickness. The second son wasn't quite as tall, but he had lots of muscles, and all the villagers knew of his feats of strength. Now, the youngest child, he wasn't quite as tall, he wasn't quite as wide, but all the villagers knew of his passion and his caring. Now, the king, he was growing old, and he would have to name an heir. So he devised a plan. He brought his 3 children together, and he shared with them this plan. He said, I'm going to send you out on a quest. I want you to spy the land and come back and tell me, report to me. So the eldest, who of course was the quickest and also the most impatient, jumped up, ran out to his horse, and off he rode. The middle child, who was, of course, the biggest, he went out, jumped on his strong steed, and off he rode. Then the youngest set out on foot. So the appointed time came, and they all got back together. It was time to do a report, and of course, the eldest, being the most impatient, jumped up and blurted out his report. He said, King, I rode through the hardwood forest, into the evergreens, and came upon an area where the lumberjacks had been taking too many trees, and now the land lay bare. The rain has come, the erosion has created and starting to form a great chasm. And the king nodded with acknowledgement. So now the next child got up to do his report. He said, O king, I rode out past the fields of grain, the vegetables down where the river flowed. There I saw great piles of trash, and the river stunk, and there was great gobs of gray, gooey foam laying all over the shore. The king nodded in acknowledgement. Then the youngest got up to do his report. He said, O king, I started out walking along the wall. Well, the other two, the 2 eldest, thought to themselves, oh, surely we will be named ruler, because he couldn't have gotten very far. He couldn't have done very much. He continued his report. As I was walking along the back side of the castle wall, on the other side of the garden, I came across a hole in the wall. There the stones were laying about. So I gathered them up, went and got a mason, and we devised a plan and started putting back the stones in place. So the king looked at him sternly and said, is that what you've done with your time? And he nodded in confirmation. So the king took a moment, stepped back and said, it's time to name the heir to the throne. And he said, that person's going to be the youngest. The 2 eldest jumped up in protest. How could this be? We've rolled all across the land and come back and reported to you. He has done very little. He hasn't done anything. And the king said, yes, yes. He calmed him down and said, you've done much, my children. However, you've come back and reported the problems, and that was a good thing. However, your brother saw a problem, devised a solution, and started working on it. That's the kind of wisdom we need to rule the land. So, fellow Toastmasters, the moral of my story is quite obvious. It's easy to see problems, but devise a solution and be a problem solver. Madam Toastmaster.